In a city manager system, city council is not the management of the city, but rather functions as a sort of board of directors. When a board lacks expertise and talent, a common way in which it fails is to develop an excessive identification with management, rather than to hold management accountable. Since the board has a weak grasp of how the organization runs and related subject material, it reverts to doing the one thing it can do, cheerleading the management it hired. The board fails to perform its duty to its shareholders, in the case of a council, the voters. Kevin Cox is a local activist who has advocated for pedestrians in Charlottesville, a cause that the council honors in rhetoric. Unfortunately, staff has a different approach. Mr. Cox recently spoke before council about adding a crosswalk to a dangerous crossing on Elliott Street, which, though indicated by VDOT regulations, traffic engineering has refused to do. Mr. Cox brought the issue to council, which ought to be the natural next step. But watch how Vice Mayor Brian Pinkston responds.
Fairway Avenue, and I'm here tonight to talk about Elliott Avenue. Elliott Avenue, it's a street in Charlottesville. It's a street in a neighborhood. It's a street where people walk, ride bikes, where kids play on the sidewalk, where they draw on the sidewalk with chalk, and that's an inspiration to me. But according to the city, Elliott Avenue is not a street. It's an arterial road, a high-speed through road. And that designation is the reason there is no crosswalk at 2nd Street and Elliott Avenue. 2nd Street goes up in Ix. A lot of people use that crossing. Crossings are deliberately limited on arterials to keep traffic moving. That's a street, not a road. We need the brakes in traffic. But like everything the city traffic engineering team does, Elliott Avenue has been poisoned by the deeply held design principle that Charlottesville is a collection of through roads for the city engineer and other county drivers to use as they tear through our town.
I would just encourage you to not use ad hominem attacks, please. Go ahead.
Not do what?
Ad hominem attacks against our staff, please.
He brooks no criticism of staff. He cuts off Mr. Cox and tries to characterize a legitimate judgment of a department's philosophy as an ad hominem attack. He clearly doesn't even know what an ad hominem attack is. For his benefit, the statement, "Nothing Mr. Pinkston says is worthy of any consideration because he is ignorant and out of his depth." That would be an ad hominem attack, though probably not far from the truth.
Engineer first arrived in Charlottesville.
Sir, please continue with your statement. Okay.
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me.
You may not.
When the city engineer first arrived, he wanted to raise the speed limit on Locust from 25 to 35. That's how he thinks, and that's poisoning transportation and sidewalks and pedestrian issues in Charlottesville, that underlying thing. Do you want to debate me?
I'm saying that in these chambers, you may not engage in
designating a neighborhood street as an arterial. That wasn't an ad hominem attack. That was a true fact, and it's in the record.
Apparently, Mr. Pinkston has no better understanding of the requirement of viewpoint neutrality than he does of the concept of ad hominem arguments. Council has countenanced all manner of scurrilities against themselves, fellow citizens, and even staff, so long as they are hurled by activists council members fear or favor. That's not viewpoint neutrality.
Designating a neighborhood street as an arterial speaks volumes about the city's ideas about what the streets in town really are for. And things only change when residents finally get energized and riled up, like happened over at Rose Hill Drive and Rugby Avenue. And the crosswalk at Barracks Road. And I'll tell you, most people are not going to do what the deputy city manager has told you they should do and walk blocks and blocks out of their way to avoid using that legitimate legal crossing into Ix. And people do come from the neighborhood to use that. The flashing beacons, they're great. Nobody's going to change, or very few people are going to change their route because of those flashing beacons. Okay? They're going to come down. They're either, what most of them do, I've stood there for hours and watched. And most people who want to cross at 2nd and are walking on Elliott will either jaywalk or they'll walk to the Second Street crossing, which is a crossing, and cross there without the benefit of a marked crosswalk. That's what they do. They don't detour. Think of it this way. Would you accept a half-a-mile detour when you drive to work, just an unnecessary routine detour that adds that much time? Of course you wouldn't, and neither should pedestrians, and they're not going to. They're just not going to. That's the fact. Now, I want to say one other thing. The reason I'm going to keep doing this in spite of the intransigency is because of people like them, the newcomers to this town who so inspire me with their desire to live in a walkable town, and you should support them as well and put down that crosswalk.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. All right, who's next?
Who's next? You, the voter, are. Staff and council work for you. Do you want counselors who understand that? Think about that as you vote.